Boys, thanks for joining us. We've been getting our guests to introduce themselves recently, which had some mixed reviews, but I think we're going to run with it today. So give us a quick elevator pitch of who you guys are and what you do.
So we're the half of the Snakehole, but we're a Melbourne streetwear label, which we've been around for about 9-10 years now.
Yep, 10 years.
Started off as an art gallery down on the Mornington Peninsula, and then kind of moved into streetwear after that. We've both kind of come from a bit of a fashion background, so
Yeah, and I'm Josh, or I get meatballs though, so call meatballs. And co-founded the Snakehole with Josh, and just been a dream run really, with a few nightmares in between, but
Yeah, unpack it. We'll refer to you as meatballs just because.
Keep things easy. I get meatballs. Half my family call me meatballs, like dad, mum call me meatballs. It's so rare to get Josh from anyone. So even introducing myself, but it's like, I don't know. It's weird to introduce yourself as meatballs though. Still,
I suppose it works with having another Josh. Like,
it's
a good separator. You know.
Yeah,
100%. It's a little bit unprofessional at times when we're, trying to meet with suppliers and stuff, and like, this is meatballs. But it works.
Yeah. I love it. So why'd you guys start the Snakehole?
It was probably like, when we started, we were both freelancing as graphic designers, illustrators, and working for a lot of other labels. And to be honest, like, we were doing so much work for these labels and getting paid donuts, and we kind of just wanted to do it ourselves and, be in full creative control of the whole process. We felt pretty constricted working with briefs and things like that. So that was part of the reason. And then the other half of it was just kind of like, it was pretty organic, really, like coming from the art gallery. We were like running art shows and things like that, and we started doing some merch because, that was what we were, we were doing a lot of fashion in the background. So we like did some merch and got into a few stores and stuff like that, and it just kind of like took off from there. Yeah. Yeah,
it went from kind of people asking, because we used to have like solid events there, like we'd have like skate movie premieres, like artists come through and like, preview work. We'd have bands come through and, have EP and album launches and stuff. And it kind of transitioned from people asking when the next event was to people asking like when the next lot of clothing was. And it was like, tell you what, making clothes is a hell of a lot easier than like, because during the week we would be in there working, like it'd be a studio, and then on the week, so we'd have to spend the whole Friday taking everything out of there, putting it into like his dad's factory next door, get everything ready, organising like, beer sponsors and everything like that, and just getting the whole place ready to essentially get destroyed on a Saturday night. And then Sunday we're in there cleaning everything, getting it ready to move the studio back in again. Yeah, dude, nightmare. So we're like, man, this is, and on top of that, like, we're making no money. We're essentially like, the whole idea about it was like building culture around the peninsula, which there was none for like younger people. So we wanted something where people would be excited to come to, because everyone was just fleeing to the city. So that was the original idea of it. And then like, but we like, I suppose like we built a culture without realizing we were just trying to have fun and just have, create something for people. But like, we were essentially like renting the space out for nothing. We were taking like almost no commission on art shows. Like, we just did enough so that like we essentially could have a party, really. And we did that. And then we're like, man, this is a lot of work. Yeah. It's like printing a few t-shirts is a lot easier. And then like people were already around the brand at the time, like just, I suppose it wasn't even really a brand, but people were around what the Snakehole was, and they just wanted to support it. So it just moved naturally and progressed into a clothing label. Like, but it certainly wasn't like plan A is like create this art gallery and then move it into a clothing label. It kind of just happened overnight. And like
initially we really just wanted to like create a space for up and coming artists to have to show their work in, and there was no culture around the peninsula. So you had to go to the city, and it was really hard to get into these, high-end galleries. So we just thought, we've got a space, let's showcase some of these kids' work. And there was kids coming down that were like, so can I buy this art? Or like they had no concept of like what it was. So it was really cool to like teach them, you know, about a bit of art and a bit of culture and that kind of thing. And then, yeah, just kind of stemmed from there.
Yeah.
I love how organic it all was. You know, I think that's like the hallmark of great brands, that, you know, you have these forced structures. Like in year 1, we do this. In year 2, we execute our 20,000 t-shirt sales. Like it never works like that. And if you can just love it, and I can see the looks on your face, like that love and passion was there, and, you know, I'm reliving it with you guys, and it's still there today, of course, 10 years strong, incredible. But yeah, that's something I really want to note, is that organic love. And if people can bring that to their brand, like that's such a great place to start. You don't always need the answers because you don't know any structure. Like, you know what I mean? I want to double back to the event side of things. Like, have a few people contact me during the week about events and wanting to run them. They're a lot more work than what meets the eye. Can you guys dive into that a bit?
Yeah, heaps more work, especially when you're doubling up a studio with an event space.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had any permanent furniture in there because, like, we've just had to move it out every time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. You've got to market the whole thing, you know, press releases and, you know,
create poster artwork and
Yeah.
getting that out. And back then it was like Facebook events. So like pumping those out and getting everyone to share them, and like just go down, like we'd go down all the major stores with posters and be like, hey, can we put this in the window? Can we put this in the window? And then just like literally chains of group text messages out. Like that's what it was back then. It was like that. Like we weren't running paid ads or anything like that. I don't even know if it
we got caught by the cops one night for putting up paste ups.
Oh yeah. Like we're just like, it was full ghetto. Like we had no money to really do, like, even if we could run paid ads, we had no money to do it anyway. So we just did, everything was just like word of mouth, and like just creating, like people like getting psyched for the next Snakehole thing, because like by the end we had ones where like the gallery itself was almost like, I always likened it like being like a 40-foot shipping container. Like we had ones where, and we'd have like the band up the back. We'd have ones where that whole space was filled out. Then the back alley around the side was filled out. Like we'd have like 300 people there.
Wow.
And then we like take over the coffee roastery next door at Common Folk, and because the space that we're in was basically just like a lean-to off the back of my dad's factory. He was a shop fitter, and I remember asking him. I said to him one day, I think I might try and get a council grant to try and have some money to like put into these art shows. And he was like, oh, don't do that. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it's not technically legal, this.
Yeah, that was a big thing of his dad's.
Dad's always doing the dodgy shit. And I was like, oh, come on, Dad. Like, I'm paying money for this space.
He used to close his factory when he heard work. So we were on this street called Progress Street. His dad, when he'd work safe, was on Progress Street doing inspections. He'd send everyone home and shut the doors of the factory.
I love that.
But getting back to the question, it was a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, especially back then. Like everything was less accessible, and it was basically all built off the back of like just getting stuff out to shot, like, you know, getting posters out, like I said, big group messages, and just like trying to spread the word that way. And like, that was. But it was mainly, like I said, it was just mainly the amount of effort that had to go into it, and it was a crap load of work for, like, in terms of financial gain, not much, but we did it like that for years, 4 years that, where we just like, you know, once a month or once every like 6 weeks, we were having a huge event. Whether it was like we had book launches out of there, we had like like huge band nights. Yeah, we had like back in the day, like Skeggs come and played there. Yeah. That was one of the last ones because we attempted to be like really bougie and make a green room for the bands.
Right.
Bad idea.
That was not good.
Everything destroyed. Like people scratching names into chairs and stuff. That was one of the last ones.
In the morning, we like got back into the studio in the morning to clean up, to like set it back up again, and all of the walls were lined with plywood, and there was like a like big clump of hair where somebody had like been headbanging, and they'd ripped their hair out of their head.
Oh my
God.
They started getting.
There was kids hanging from the ceiling and stuff. It was pretty gnarly,
And the other thing is too, like the night wraps up. Now you've got hundreds of people on the road, and you're like, there's lack of taxis back then around. That was like. That wouldn't just be cleaning the venue, you would be cleaning the whole street. Yeah. Like we'd have to go down the street with garbage bags, and like we'd get alcohol sponsors, and we couldn't sell the alcohol, so it was free. So people, that was even more gnarly because it's free alcohol. So like,
So you guys was paying for all that?
no, we'd get sponsors.
Oh, you'd get it for
yeah,
free.
we'd get sponsors.
But then you'd have to sell it for
Yeah, we'd have to give it away. Like,
it was good though because the cops would always come to the shows and
Have a few beers.
well, they'd always say, "Oh, where's your liquor license?" And you didn't have to have one if
Yeah.
you were giving it
yeah,
away.
it's like a little loophole.
Yeah, still exists that today.
Does it?
Yeah. I ran
yeah.
an event 2 years ago. That was on Google. I was like, oh,
yeah, it's good to know.
art exhibition.
It was so.
It's all about how you frame it.
Yeah, like we'd have like our mates work in the bar, and they'd be like, for sure we would have served like some 17-year-olds because there was just like no one cared. Like,
It's just flowing.
yeah, like at the start
tried
we're
to
always
keep a
we
lid on
tried
it.
to like be like, oh, make sure you ask people for licenses, but like by the end the bar staff's drunk too.
It was a makeshift.
Yeah.
What about, so like you guys are doing this for 4 years straight, like hosting events. What are you doing on the side to make $1?
We were both freelancing graphic artists, and I was still doing a lot of work for other brands, doing graphics. And we still do a bit of that today. Like that's still a part of how we make our money. I paint murals with another guy, Jack. We go under the name Jack and Josh, and we do a lot of like breweries and things like that, and like commercial murals and things like that. And then I run like a co-working space as well.
Right.
So like all of them don't make heaps of money, but together they like give me an income, you know? So, and it allows me to, you know, get all of my like creative release,
Juice,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So that's kind of like my income's all kind of bundled into, you know, a few different businesses, which is good. Yeah. It keeps it interesting too. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Busy man. Josh?
Yeah, it was the same. Like so I got my start. I always thought I wanted to be like an ad agency guy. And like I finished, I did the exact same. Me and Josh both didn't go to uni. We went to TAFE and got diplomas in graphic design, and then I finished that and I did a like advanced diploma, and I got really lucky. There was an ad agency, a big one, George Patterson, Young and Rubicon, which is probably one of like the biggest. They were like probably one of the biggest ad agencies in Melbourne at the time, and they used to go to like these TAFE shows because they preferred like hands-on kids for designers. And I got poached straight out of there, went to an ad agency, worked there for a while. Then they lost the Army, which is like one of their biggest clients, and they had to let a lot of the younger designers go. So I moved back down to Peninsula, and I was working with Josh at this surf company called Barlin. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. They were huge in like the 90s. They're much smaller now. And we started working together there, and like I think that's where we got a huge amount of education for clothing, because we weren't just developing graphics for clothes, but we were working directly with factories offshore. We were doing the shoots for the clothes, and we were developing surf hardware, going, you know, putting leg rope concepts together, and board bags and stuff like that. So, and then we're going and shooting, and we're creating the actual lookbooks that go out to the wholesalers and everything like that. So we essentially, and we were there for a couple of years. And before that, Josh was at Insight and Subi. But so we were there together, just like essentially as like, you know, we were probably 22 years old, and we were like there essentially running the entire creative for this back then, like a pretty big company. Like they were primarily wholesale, but they would have had a few hundred stores easily.
Wow.
So like we're working ahead of, you know, we're working in seasons. We're putting these like huge clothing ranges together. They're probably like, 60-piece collections and stuff like that. And like, and we're, like I said, we're liaising with the factories, and we're looking at washers and trying to understand that. And that was like our introduction to the manufacturing side. Mm-hmm. And then from there, after I wrapped up there, I thought I wanted the ad agency life again. I thought I missed like the really fast pace, hustle and bustle. So I went back into ad agencies again, and just like immediately wanted to like shoot myself. Like thought I wanted to be there, and as soon as I was there, I lasted like 18 months, and I'm like, I'm done with this. So I came back, and that's when essentially we were really started the gallery side of things. Like we were still doing that whilst I was at the ad agency, but I'm like, I just wanted to play a spot to freelance. And so I was freelancing as well. Like Josh said, we work with other brands and other companies, and also doing like a bunch of just corporate stuff.
How old are you at this time?
would have been 24ish, I'd say.
Yep.
Yeah, about 24 around that. And then so we were both just in that studio freelancing and then doing the art stuff, like art exhibitions, and then doing our own art. We had a couple of our own like shows together there at Snakehole as well. So yeah, I was just relying on like any stuff I could sell that I could make art wise, anything that we made from the Snakehole, from the event side of things, and then just freelancing. So same thing as Josh, like just had several pots on at once. And I think that's how like my mind operates anyway. Like I like to have like lots of things going on at once and kind of just be really like absorbed in like, you know, different things.
Great grounding in terms of the foundations for building a streetwear business as well. Like as you guys recount all your past history and experiences, makes so much sense that you guys start a brand. You're pretty much doing it already. But not, you know, seeing any of the rewards, or it's not your own. So
100%.
I'd love to go into, so 2016 I believe is when you guys kind of moved it to a clothing brand.
Yes, it was 2016. Yep.
Was that a, you know, obviously with all this experience, you feel like it's a no-brainer in a sense, but talk me through that decision-making process. It's obviously a big decision for you guys to kind of, I don't know what it looked like, shutting up shop of the gallery or potentially moving away from other creative pursuits to a venture that's maybe more corporate and business-like. How was that for you guys?
Yeah, so we didn't make the exclusive decision to stop running the galleries. We just found ourselves doing it less once we became more interested in the clothing itself. But it really started because we worked at this like surf skate shop called PSC, or Peninsula Skate or Peninsula Surf Centre. And we were friends with one of the buyers, and they were having kids on the Peninsula come in and go, "Hey, do you guys stock the Snakehole?" Because we just had...
Because we were actually doing all their graphics as well.
We were doing their graphics
in our freelance work. So
the monopoly here.
So like that was
little
kind of
Snakehole on the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Kids didn't even know they were wearing it.
Yeah. Funnel it in.
And she's like, "Can we get like 200? Can we get like 200 tees?" And we're like, "We don't have money to make 200 t-shirts." We're like, yeah, we can make 200 t-shirts for you. And they're like, "Can you pay for them first?" It's like, yeah. So they wrote us an order for like a couple hundred t-shirts, and that was like our first real proper run, because we were just, you know, ordering a handful of blanks. We'd probably make like, you know, 20 or 30 tees at a time or something like that. And any of the money we had, we would just keep. Like, we weren't like reinvesting back into business and thinking about growth or scale. We were just like...
It wasn't a serious business at that point. It was just a passion project.
This is like back in big cartel days. So like we were just, any money there, like if there's $1,000 in the bank account, it was $500 each. And then like next time we want to make money, we just put the money back. Like, "Have you got any money?" It's like, "Yeah, cool, like a couple $100 each, make some more teas." So we ended up just using that money as like essentially like our seed money. And then we were like, okay, well maybe this time, because we've actually, you know, we have a couple $1,000 now. It's like, let's actually leave that in the account and see if like we can actually use that to create a clothing line. And that's essentially how we started. Like our first more than like 2 t-shirts. Like you're like, "Hey, let's make a couple hoodies, let's make a couple tees," and just like grow up from there. And we were lucky because we had the space. We could use that for our opening nights. So we'd have like the roller door down, and we'd try to like get some hype around it. And then boom, roller draw come up, we'd have our line out there. And like we relied heavily at the start on those opening nights to move a lot of our garments, because we just had big cartels. So it's not like we're running paid traffic or anything like that. And that was kind of the very start. It was like...
I think doing it that way, where we had the culture around the brand before it was even a brand, was really great, because it all went hand in hand. And a lot of the people that were coming down to the space, like, they might have a similar style to us, and that was just kind of how it just like organically just kind of took off from there. So I think that was a big part of it, and the fact that we didn't get rid of the gallery as we started the clothing label really helped us, because it just solidified that culture around it. Yeah,
I think, you know, that's such a huge point. There's so many brands out there today, especially when you start, it's when you incur this problem. You know, you're essentially probably putting on like a basic garment, like we'll use a t-shirt, for example. But it's like, what is the point of why I'm buying this? And often it's not the print or the design, because, you know, they've got guys, they're versing people like yourselves who've been doing this for 10 years that have great experience with graphic. So it's like, it needs to be about culture or environment. So what you guys have done doing those 4 years worth of parties was like, that's just built that culture and environment and and then you're adding your experience with graphic design, and it's like match made in heaven. But I would say to young brands listening to this, it's like, what are you doing away from the graphic, away from the
100%.
garment? Because often in the early days, that's far more important because it's subjective. Like whether it's a snake on a graphic or a smiley face or whatever it might be, it's really important. The external stuff, because that's what people talk about. And anyway, I just wanted to make that point.
It's completely true. Like if I could give any advice to anyone starting a brand now, it's 100% focus on the culture. Like obviously the product is very important, but like building that around the brand and making people feel like they know you or they have some kind of link to you is like tenfold the most important thing. I feel like, so I completely agree with that. Yeah.
100%.
How do you feel about some of these brands that are popping up, on TikTok and just, a lot of pre-orders, and I suppose not really trying to invest in a community and culture that are popping off? Like what do you guys think about that model?
Yeah, to be honest, I think the more brands out there, the better. I think it's great to see guys giving it a crack and doing really well. Like the marketing side of things in terms of like social media and stuff, like probably came a little bit second nature to us at the start, and it took a lot of growth to kind of learn all that kind of stuff. And these guys who are like nailing it straight away, like props to them. Like it's pretty amazing what some of these smaller brands are doing at the moment. So yeah.
But I also think I think people see through a lot of stuff as well though. Like it's very I think people can see when people really can see when it's like there's a cash grab, or like you do see like brands pop up and you can see that they're just completely copying something that is on trend at the moment. Like you see that like especially on TikTok, like you'll see a brand who's done something first and you'll see 10 brands behind them doing the exact same thing. And that's cool when you start because like you don't really know. Like you're just like, oh, that's cool. I want to try and replicate that. Yeah. But eventually you do need to find your own lane. And that's where like you really grow from anyway. It's like finding that little niche, that little thing that someone's not doing and like really attacking that. But I think at the start, like, man, people are just, you're going to get these brands who like, they're really just new. So of course they're going to like look at their idols and try to walk like them and talk like them and, make clothes that look like theirs. But to get to that next level, like, yeah, you do need to like find your own voice essentially.
What's the Snakehole lane that's kept you guys around for 7 years as a clothing brand?
What's the Snakehole? What, sorry?
Like, what's your lane at Snakehole? Like,
lane.
You mentioned yeah, you got to find your lane.
We've always been, because of their art gallery background, like the phrase that we've always thrown around has been art-driven streetwear. So for us, it's been like one thing I think being like graphic designers and illustrators, one thing that we've always done well is graphics and like really being able to like conceptualize things and find like cool messages and good ways to like deliver things. So definitely, I would say like the marketing side of things and the building a hype things for us has never been our strong suit. Our strong suit has been the product itself and the design behind it, and the marketing, like Josh said, has definitely been second nature to us because we've always been like, the kids in the bedroom drawing all day and scribbling all day. So that's just been what we naturally, some people are naturally salesmen, some people are naturally designers, some people are, great at the back end with tech packs and stuff like that. We've always been like the art focused guys, and we've let that do a lot of the talking for us. So I feel like that's definitely been where we kind of like shine, I'd say.
And trying to like keep our graphics really concise and like keep a bit of a theme and an aesthetic going on throughout that whole story,
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, that you do see a lot of like the amount of, I'm sure you guys seen a million times, like when that Y2K trend came through, how much stuff did you see on Pinterest directly put on garments? Like that was the amount of stuff that you just saw like over and over again, like star swirl, like it's like that like that kind of stuff has been nothing we've ever had to like where people struggle to like think of graphics, we don't struggle there. We'd probably like where we struggled was probably more like the marketing side of things, like how do we get this out there?
Yep.
But the graphics and the ideas for us is like, man, when we do a seasonal, like we're planning autumn at the moment, we'll have like 100 garments that we have to cut down from. Like we have just droves of ideas, and like we have so many times where like like the B-roll of our stuff is like, we still like it so much. We're like pushing to other seasons. Then by the time that season comes around, we've already got new ideas. So it just keeps getting pushed back. So
I think the boys like struggled to grasp that for a while. Like when stuff, like we would just be so fine with like cutting garments out of the range plan, and they'd just be like, we're not doing that. Like it was
like, nah, mate, we'll think of something better. Don't worry, it's all good.
Spent 6 weeks on that design.
Yeah, and I think like, and that's one thing as well. Like, we're not with when you're designers, and especially if you've come up in like advertising in the court, it's very cutthroat, and there's no emotional ties to like designs, and like, you know, there's nothing like that. So that's one thing as well. We're very comfortable just being like working on something for a few weeks and then just being like, nah, it's not there. Like, you know, like that happens a lot, and we're able to like move on quick.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think you guys strike me as purists of like design and art, and we've had a few of those on, but I think in this current climate, we're in like an attention sort of seeking sort of phase of the world. And I think you can attribute a lot of that to social media, specifically TikTok. And I've heard you guys speak about your struggles on TikTok, and I'd say there's no surprise there, because that's just like so fast paced. I think it was Sam, your videographer, mentioned it's like a hard concept for an artist to put something out that's going to be gone in 24 hours. Essentially.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know? It's like, how much depth can it have if it's not going to be known or spoken about? It kind of goes against what art is in a lot of senses. But on that note, it's, you know, I hope for the listener, and I think people's abilities to distinguish brands that don't speak loud for themselves to a certain degree, you know, and I don't think that's your strength. And I think a lot of other brands are out there, you know, getting 10 posts up a day, but, you know, they probably are on Pinterest just using the swirls and the stars.
Yeah.
But they're putting that in everyone's face. And then, you know, that'll probably be the brand that's maybe more out there, if you will. But I just hope that as a society we can be able to distinguish, you know, what's kind of got longevity and maybe deeper meaning behind it. But I don't know if I'm confident in that, just because the way the world's going with this fast pace. You know, we see a lot of it.
Well, that was like one of the things coming into this chat today. We were most impressed with you guys, and where I guess we have a lot of respect for you guys, and the fact that you have just stuck to, you know, what you're true to. And kind of like you were saying, Josh, you stay concise to your designs, and you can, when you go on your website and you see all the products that you've made over the years, like you can see a clear narrative and a story, and it probably, you know, tells everyone who you guys are as people as well. I think that comes out in the garments, and it can, especially the climate, it can be easy. You guys could have just fucking jumped on a trend and made a product and cashed out at any time, but it looks like you guys just think long, and you've stayed the course, which is, I mean, so much respect for doing that, because you know how tough small business is at times.
Yeah,
so.
that means a lot, man. But yeah,
it's good to hear, because it's hard to see when you're in it as well.
Yeah,
like it's
forest from the trees kind of thing.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. Yeah.
Speaking about tough small business elements, I think, you know, we've spoken briefly about sort of like, I guess, tragedies that can happen in the form of life. And I think what I like for the listener to take from this, and, you know, I want to have this discussion with you guys, when you are a small business, if things go wrong in your life personally or even professionally, it can have a big weight and a big sort of influence on the business, you know, for you guys, Snakehole, and its direction. Have you gone over the last 10 years dealing with life and all that comes with it, and, you know, keeping that direction, and that makes sense. I don't know if I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So like Josh and I have been like, we've been pretty strong partners over the last 10 years, and pretty blessed to have a business partner like Josh, and we just keep the communication up all the time, and like we respect each other a lot. We've probably both gone through a lot of hard things over the time. Like I lost my dad 5 years ago, just before I had kids as well, which was really hard. Yep. And Josh has just been like a huge support to me through that time as well, which is good. And yeah, it's tough. Like both of us have got a lot on the boil at one time, you know, running one business or two or three or whatever. And you just got to find time to like time for yourself as well, because it can get a bit overwhelming, and you end up relying on all these other people to kind of help you out. But you really just need to like stop, find some time, and then the great thing about us is we're able to like cover each other, you know, in the business, which is good. So yeah.
And I suppose like one thing we did from the start, like I suppose we subconsciously did it as well, is we managed to kind of, because we kind of started hiring probably earlier than we should have. Subsequently, we actually built a business that can run really well without us being there. And because we have other businesses and other things that we do, it had to be like that. So we had this growing business, but we started right away without even realizing. We started, you know, bringing people in and getting like setting processes up and getting involved where luckily we are at the point for sure, like where we can go, like we could not walk into the studio for a couple of weeks and it would just turn harmoniously, no problem. So we've been really lucky in that sense. And, you know, Josh has a young family and, you know, I've got a girlfriend and, I've got a mortgage and stuff to pay. So it needs to be like, we need to be able to, it needs to run like that.
Lean on each other.
Yeah, need to be able to lean on each other and have something that was like when Josh was going through the stuff with his dad and stuff like that, if he had a business where he had to be in there every day, or he had to rely on me running the entire show every day, like it would cause, it would make it even harder for him during that period because he'd have to deal with other emotions like guilt and stuff like that. Where we're super lucky we have each other and the team that we have as well. So just so fortunate for that. Absolutely.
Special, guys. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That was
no worries.
It was amazing.
Talk us through, in terms of a business sense, what's maybe the biggest hiccup or backward step you guys have taken, so far in the
There's
journey?
been a few. What's one of the hardest? Probably.
I think one of the most recent ones was probably, so we had everything running really well offshore. Like we had probably 5 or 6 different factors we leaned on for different things. Like you probably know, Jesse, we had like guys making hoodies. We had guys to run our like hats and socks, and that was all running very harmoniously. And we had one of our major factories we had end up having a fallout with. And at the same time, I was like, we'd always been playing with the idea of making everything here in Australia. So we were like, me and Josh sat down and we were like, this could be like a sign to like start moving some stuff back here, because it's like we're going to need a new fleece and jersey place. Why don't we just try and see if we can have a crack like at just doing it here instead? And at the same time, just coincidentally, a friend of mine that I'd known forever had actually started a production house here in Australia. So and this is like just me and Josh's personality, as soon as we get an idea on something, every bit of energy goes into it. So like we were like transfixed on like, it's like, let's get everything done here in Australia then. So, and we started immediately closing our factories offshore and being like, guys, thank you so much for over the years, we're changing everything.
Yeah.
And like, it was just not enough. Like, well, we'd done as much research as we could into it. Like, we thought we understood the lead times because we were bringing fabric from offshore to Australia because they had the fabrics we wanted. We struggled to find that here locally. And then we were like sea freighting it in. So like, it's obviously big delays you have to prepare for. And then we were cutting and sewing it ourselves here. We were making all our socks and stuff here as well. We found like knitting mills for them. So, and we did all the work ourselves. Like, we did not when you don't know any context here in Australia for manufacturing, it's like, you can't, like I've said this before, you can't go on the internet and Google Australian manufacturers. You have to knock on doors, make phone calls, find patent makers, do all this work. So there was a huge load of work we did. And in the meantime, our offshore stock is dwindling away in the factory and we still haven't produced anything here yet. And obviously we've got outgoings every week to pay. And anyway, we finally start making a little bit of stuff here. And from our market research at the time, like it was like, we put it out to our customers. We said, hey, are you guys willing to pay an extra 20% for an Australian made garment? Everyone says yes, of course. Everyone's like, yes, support local, like, cool, let's get this running. We put up our prices. We start bringing in fabric. Stock stops moving as fast. and our margin, like even with the increased price, we decided to eat a bunch of margin because we're like, let's just build this here and grow the price over the next couple of years to let it catch up. And it just like, and then it started bottlenecking, like the production started bottlenecking when, you know, we're used to 3-4 weeks turnaround in China. We weren't unable to turn around stock that quick. Stuff was stuff was backlogging. It was taking longer than it should have. Like, and all of a sudden, before we knew it, like we were essentially about a year and a half ago, close to broke. We had almost nothing left in the account. We were self-funding the business ourselves.
Shit.
And we had like, we were at a decision point again. It's like, because the whole thing we started was like, it originally was like, well, we want to, you know, fund some of these businesses, but it can't be at the cost of ourselves, obviously. We just tried to do too much too quick, and it like really put us in like a really tough spot financially. And we just had to make a really fast decision to like fire up some of the factories again offshore, keep making we were still making fleece in our jersey and stuff here. I think I heard like the Ish Big boys talking about how moving the cut and sew stuff, making it here in Australia. Fucking props to them for doing it for so long like that.
Yeah.
The margins
Hard.
are dog shit
Yeah.
for us anyway.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were. And so we had to quickly reverse everything we'd done. So like over that year and a half we spent making everything here, we had to fire up the factories again, get everything turning around. And then we luckily like saved, like we had times where like, you know, just before payroll we had like $1,000 in the bank. So like we were skinned, but luckily,
Learn a
like
lot through that time.
yeah, you learn, and
Sure.
you learn a lot. And if you talk about pressure, that is like the ultimate amount of pressure. And it's not like it's not like, you know, their business is way bigger than us. It's not like we have like 100 people on the payroll, but for us still, when, you know, everything's self-funded, it was like really, really tight through that period. But we were able to like get the factories running again, make some moves, and it's like, okay, cool. So we're going to move all our cut and sew and stuff back, like our like jacketing, pants, knitwear and stuff back offshore. Let's open it back up again. Let's make it more accessible with price and stuff like that. And luckily, like it probably came just in the nick of time. We were able to like turn it around and probably like have our best year ever straight after that.
Wow.
So like,
It's awesome, guys.
yeah, it was like, yeah, it was definitely like some stressful conversations during that
Scary.
time.
I can just see it in your eyes. You're like,
Yeah,
some
it's
dark
like just
times right
PTSD. But like we love making stuff here in Australia and we're going and seeing the manufacturers and stuff. So like going forward, we're like, cool. The new plan is going to be like, we want to have Australian-made injections every season of like fleece and jersey, and then we'll work with our offshore guys.
Because we love like having that hand in every part of making that garment. Like in Australia, you've literally got to do everything yourself, as you guys would probably know. So like, you know, with China, it's kind of handed to you on a bit of a platter. But in Australia, you've got to go and find your fabric yourself, source your labels, find someone to sew them in, and like, you know, like the whole process is just so complicated. And it is exciting to do it that way, but moving your whole business to that you know, that way of doing things is like, it was really tough.
Yeah. Like we had, in terms of Australia, like I remember we did we had a really successful run of pants for a long time called the Fat Cats. Now like these corduroy pants. And we started making them here in Australia too. And even then, like, we'd make them here in Australia and then our factory would be like, we're never making these again. Like, we spent like a week cleaning up dust because when you cut corduroy, it's very fibrous in the air. So even stuff like that,
Note to self.
So like, and that's why like you can see why jersey and fleece and stuff like that is really the thing to do here in Australia, because it's much preferred by the factories anyway, because it's clean, they're familiar with it. They'd rather that anyway. Like, we gave our guys nightmares with the stuff we were trying to get made, like these technical shorts with like multiple different fabrics, and they're, you know, it's just not really what they're psyched on doing anyway.
I think it's just like our economy in the Australian industry just isn't set up for a lot of those technical garments.
Yeah.
Lack of machinery too.
Lack of machinery, labour. It's hard to get people in these factories to work. And that's what the consumer doesn't understand. You know, I think a lot of times they just see the made in Australia or made in China or wherever it is on the website, and like they initially they just pigeonhole you into a basket, and they have no idea what goes on behind the scenes or how difficult it is to be made in Australia.
Yeah.
You guys have heaps of a pretty wide array of products now that are available on your website. You know, from knits, vests, this jacket that you guys got on, t-shirts, obviously hoodies, your staples. Is there a bestseller over the years, or is there something that product type that has just gone gangbusters for you?
Yeah, we actually one of the products we just released. Actually, we this vest, but in a different colorway or a couple of different colorways. We've done this in a few different colorways over the last probably 12 months, and our last release just went crazy, and it's just become our bestseller, and it's been amazing to see. And maybe we can continue. We've done a few colorways in it now, and hopefully we can make it a bit of a staple product on our website, because that's one thing it is hard with the model of our business is everything's limited, and once it's gone, and I think it can frustrate customers a little bit too, because if they're don't have their finger on the pulse, they can't get a garment. So we would like to offer some more staple pieces, and then some of those more popular pieces will probably come back into rotation, but we'll be really picky with those ones. But yeah, the vests were crazy. It was nuts. Hey,
Can we talk numbers?
Yeah, I think we sold. I think we sold about 300 of those in the first week.
Wow.
And then obviously you're moving other product alongside it. So for us, that's very solid. That's really, really solid.
Very solid.
Yeah.
On a niche product, especially a vest too.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it just hit a lot of markets. It was a unisex garment. It hit the punter. It hit the cooler guys. It really just spread
across a
lot of people. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a solid piece. And it's just, I think it's a piece too. With that kind of stuff. It's very trans-seasonal as well. And I think that's we learned a lot just from, because we'd released that garment before. This is not the first, the last
radio.
Yeah. Exactly. We'd had that a couple of times out, different colorways for whatever reason. This cool grey colorway, whatever. It's easy to wear or whatever. It just what sold out way quicker than any of the other ones did, and that's the other thing too. We left a lot of money on the table with being understocked in stuff in the past. So we did our I think that's our first or second pre-order when we did the vests and stuff like that.
Yep.
And it's definitely something that for some products, it's obviously not every single product we want to be doing that. We do still having that exclusiveness to some stuff, but having stuff actually available, because not only that, it just gets more of the garments out there on the street, and it's the best form of advertising is word of mouth. Yep. So having that out there is definitely something that we want to focus on a little bit more, as well as having that really core line, have stuff where people go on the website and always get something, rather than be bummed that everything is unavailable and can't strike while iron's hot.
Yeah, I love how you talk about the cool grey and that nuance there. You've done previous colorways, and I'm sure they didn't sell anywhere near that. And it's fuck, you don't know if you're close or not. So it's really important to try things, and I think try a lot of things and try fast. Don't take 6 months or a whole season, whatever it is, to try that new color. Just even if you chuck it on your story, and those little things like that, I think go a long way. And in this fast paced era we live in, I think utilize that fast pace, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. There's some pieces that we haven't even brought out, but we get a pretty good idea if something's gonna be a heat product, because all the boys in the studio are just vibing on it, and they're I'm getting one of these when they come in, and we get a pretty good idea when the box comes in and everyone's got one on and they've left the studio with that garment on. So when we get a product like that, we usually try and already start working on a move on for the next season to try and capitalize on that, and also just reinvent the product as well. So
How far ahead are you guys working on products?
yeah, at the moment we've just kind of got into the group. We've never really been really good at like staying on top of our production calendar, and probably the past 6 months we've been like really diligent with it, and it's just helped us so much. It's been awesome. So at the moment we're working on autumn. So we just wrapped up summer and just went straight into autumn design.
Yep.
Yeah, we just finished autumn research last week, so now we're in the actual development period, which will go for the next 5 weeks.
Dope.
So that's when everyone just goes. We catch up once a week, and everyone just has like this like InDesign document where they're just like putting concepts and ideas down, and then we catch up once a week. We review everyone's new concepts, and we start like, yep, that's looking good. That's looking good. That needs further development. That's no good, or like that's been done, or like it's too far behind now. So over the next 5 weeks, we'll develop autumn. But yeah, we'll probably start sampling autumn by the end of September, I'd say, for next year.
And that whole method kind of allows us to like cast the net really wide and find all those like really interesting products that like everyone's psyched on, and then we can kind of fill the gaps after that, and like pop a t-shirt in here, or maybe we're lacking a pair of pants, so we can like drop that in a certain period. So it's kind of good doing it that way, because like the boys have just got such amazing ideas on garments, and everyone wants to like throw out something that's like pretty out there, and it allows you to kind of do that and then find the space afterwards. So, yeah,
It's funny. I feel like with talking to so many brands, and even on this podcast as well, I'd say that is one of the main characteristics of a brand that is sustainable and makes it long term in this game, is planning ahead like that. Like Itch Pig was very similar, 10 years. Louis from Earls was very similar. He's creating an amazing brand. There's just when there's such a link between planning 6-5 months ahead, being organized, and then like and success really. Plainly put.
Because you got to put out, like, if you don't do that, you're putting out so many spot fires with production. You just get yourself into it, stuck in a rut, and you end up having to like try and get yourself out, and you waste money. And
the big thing for us too is like we need to put our garments on the water as well. Like as you guys know, like air freight's super expensive. And like a big thing for us, we're so far out, is like we need time to think about, does stuff get stuck in a port somewhere? Like we need to have like, ocean times now, like 4 to 6 weeks. It's like, cool, we're given 10 weeks. Like we can't have anything go wrong. So that was a big thing too, is like, it's also good for margins to be organized. Yeah. So
yeah, that's the one point that distinguishes the new brands from like the more experienced, is they'll be paying air freight, which is roughly about 3-4 times more depending.
Yep.
And like, if you're buying a lot of stock, that's thousands upon thousands of dollars, and it's the easiest money you'll save.
Yep.
So from being organized, you just put that in your pocket.
It's the easiest money to save, exactly. Because like if you look at it on like a t-shirt, if you look at it on the dollar amount that you save, you're like, oh, that's not that much. It's like I'm saving like $2 a t-shirt. But when you scale that out and then you're doing that on other garments, it's like it makes a huge difference at the end of a year. Like
thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Especially the bigger you get, and that's what every brand's trying to do, grow. So it's like, this is something that's compounding over and over.
Yeah, so, and that's money you can spend on another part of the business. Like if you save, if you're saving, 10, 15 grand a year in freight or something like that, it's like a $15,000 advertising campaign. Like you can get a lot of eyes on your brand for 15 grand.
Yep.
So,
mate, well said.
What's next for you guys at Snakehole?
What do we got coming up?
We're working on autumn, but we've got some really exciting winter drops coming through. We've got some more fleece coming through, which is like that's going to be epic.
Knitwear as well.
Yep, nice. Got some more knitwear coming through as well. But we're working on a couple collabs in the background too, which would be pretty exciting. But we just want to what we're doing right now, like where we've been the last like year, I feel like we've had really, really good flow, and we just want to kind of like the way the team is and the way everything's turning over, and it just feels like a well-oiled machine at the moment. So we're just happy where everything's going. Love to like start thinking about some overseas stuff. I still think there's a lot of room in Australia. Like I'm not like we don't need to be jumping into the offshore market right away, but something we want to start thinking about for sure at some point. So.
Yeah, we've got some like pop-ups up like South Yarra.
Cool.
No, that was it. That was
Yeah,
just that one pop-up for now, which will be good. Like we're wanting to do a lot more stuff up in the city because a lot of our our warehouse sale every year is down our way, and it's kind of difficult for people to get down to the peninsula. So we're trying to like move a lot of our events up to the city so they're a little bit more accessible too, which is good.
Has there ever been a thought of establishing a space in Melbourne or in the city?
There's been a thought, but I don't think it's gone past that.
Yeah. I think maybe down the road, if we ever to have a second base, the next base would definitely be like if we were to have a flagship store or something like that, certainly it would be in the city.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, we're still so focused on like the online business and stuff like that. We like doing our little pop-ups when we do them like in the city, and they do really well, but brick and mortar is tough, man.
Tough game.
Yeah.
Guys, I have to speak on behalf of everyone listening to this. It's going to be a 10-year anniversary party.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've like floated the idea of doing a book of like all of our graphics over the years and that kind of thing, which would be pretty cool.
Some of the behind the scenes photos.
Yeah, we'd have to definitely have to do a big launch.
Yeah,
Free
definitely.
booze.
Yeah.
Yes.
Back to the old days.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Cool. Well, we'll hold you to it, guys.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys coming on. That was really dope. Thank you.
Fun.
Yeah, it was
Appreciate you
awesome.
guys having us. It was good to chat, and we're big fans of the podcast. So.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, what you guys are doing is like super inspirational. Like with the podcast and the business and tying it all together, you guys are bound for success. So
thank you,
and
brother.
You're doing a really good job.
I just also wanted
Thanks,
to
guys.
give one really, really quick shout out. One of our young junior designers, Tommy, he's just he's been with us forever, and he just started a label in the last few months called Buzzcut, and I just wanted to. Yeah, I just wanted to get. He's grinding. He's grinding his ass off. So check out some of his socials and stuff too, because it's really important to support these young guys.
Definitely.
Giving it a crack.
Yeah,
100%.
awesome. No, guys, you were so open on here, and yeah, from young brands, I know they're going to take a lot of value from someone that's been around for 10 years, and they're going to have more value when they're at your party. But thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
guys. Thanks, guys.